The L538 Range Rover Evoque entered volume production in July 2011 after having been shown in concept form under the name Land Rover LRX Concept at the 2008 North American International Auto Show. It is built upon the LR-MS platform, which is a near complete transformation and redesign of the Ford EUCD platform that the Freelander 2 was built on. The first generation Evoque would not only introduce the Range Rover brand to two-wheel drive, as well as a four-wheel drive option, but the first Range Rover to be offered as a convertible. There was a noticeable difference between the Range Rover Evoque to the Range Rover Sport and Range Rover itself, in that it was targeted at the flourishing small SUV market instead of the dedicated luxury off-road segment, growing the brand's breadth and customer base. To some Land Rover enthusiasts, this was a sad departure from the vehicles the brand was known for. However, with such a strong business case and the acceptance by enthusiasts that for the brand to live on, it needed a wider market to increase sales, the Evoque was soon accepted. It may be different, but it bolstered the balance sheet. The L538 wasn't pretending to be something it wasn't either, with both marketing and design focused on being an SUV rather than an off-roader. However, Land Rover still made sure that the road-focused Evoque would be able to go further than most in this segment with hill descent, a wading depth of half a metre or 19.7 inches, plus a terrain response system and short overhangs to the bumper, a must for any off-roader. With our introduction to the model done, there are a few key dates to be aware of through the L538 Evoque lifespan. We'll start with a slightly odd set of dates for the inception of the Evoque. The first production model reached customers in September 2011, however Land Rover's own records on their website have the model lifespan beginning in 2010, and the grant to build the Evoque was announced in March 2009. Production is recorded to have started on the 4th of July 2011, whether Ford were giving a final nod to the brand that they would soon sell by beginning production of a future model on the day celebrated by American independence is mere speculation. However, the narrative is so finely fitting, we'll give it some credence. In late 2013, the facelift 2014 model year went on sale in the UK. This refresh would remain until the end of production in 2018. The update was not merely cosmetic, as the new 9-speed automatic gearbox from ZF, coded ZF9HP, became available along with some additional driver safety technology like lane departure warning and rear traffic detection. If you want the Evoque as a convertible, you'll only have 2 model years to search through, with the introduction in 2016 short-lived in the L538 when the production ended in 2018. After 7 years on sale, the first generation was replaced by the L551 generation, but in its time on sale, sold over 800,000 units worldwide. There are a variety of recalls for the first generation Evoque, although thankfully today these issues should be resolved on a used example, but it never hurts to double check. In December 2018, a recall was issued to resolve a problem with a number of vehicles cutting out and stopping while in operation. In August 2016, a recall was issued for a fuel leak on diesel models. This was issued again in March 2018 for a different set of chassis codes. In December 2016, 3 recalls were issued for problems operating the steering wheel, a short circuit, and a front passenger airbag failure to deploy. Another recall was issued in January 2017 for short circuits within the wiring harness to a short production batch of diesel models manufactured between July and October 2016. And in May 2017, a recall was issued to check the assembly of the lock ring after reports of incorrect fitment. Finally, a late recall was issued in September 2019 for vehicles produced between December 2015 and March 2016. This was a retest of emissions equipment and rectification if needed, as a wider variation of CO2 levels than mandated had been recorded on a small number of vehicles. Very few Evoques, if any, would have been issued with all of these recalls, and most would have had a single recall for an isolated issue in a batch of production components, so don't be worried if you go to view a vehicle that has never been recalled, as it was likely just an unaffected chassis code. Now on to the common faults. A warning light can appear for the airbags. This may be because an owner has ignored an earlier recall, or a short circuit has formed separately from the recall. Either way, if the warning light remains illuminated during the test drive, be aware that it may take time and money to resolve the issue. If buying one of the early facelift models produced in either 2014 or 2015 with the 9-speed automatic gearbox, a problem initially arose with the gearbox returning no gears while driving. A recall resolved this issue on a handful of cars that reported the problem, but on a test drive make sure the gearbox doesn't hesitate through the gears or show neutral at any time. Turbo failure between 40 to 70,000 miles has been reported, with the worst case of engine damage caused by an initial turbo problem. This is not believed to be an oil starvation issue, but instead a manufacturing issue that leads to the failure. We would stress, however, that there is not an officially recorded number of failures for us to see how common this problem was. Land Rover didn't ever issue a recall, although stories of goodwill or warranty work have been reported. But a number of angry owners were justifiably very vocal about the issue, and so if you find one that has already had a turbo reconditioned or replaced, it should add some peace of mind to your purchase. Electrical issues relating to the navigation system and reversing camera should be obvious on a test drive, but make sure to test everything works before handing over any money. Finally, the brakes should be inspected. Owners have complained of brake booster issues that leave them with weak or no brake pressure. Caliper bolts were recalled for a short time to check the torque measurements, but are unlikely to be an issue on a used purchase today, although there is no harm in having a brake inspection carried out. Squeaking brakes may be a sign of pads in need of replacement. We advise paying for either premium or OEM brake parts if you experience any squeaks, as owners have scorched disc by using poorer quality pads. Next up are the engines, but before that a reminder that we also have a website and podcast that we'll link in the comments below. If you're enjoying the video, then don't forget to give us a thumbs up so that we know you've liked it, and consider subscribing for more. The heart and soul of every Evoque lives under the bonnet, and although the Evoque doesn't get a 6 or 8 cylinder motor, the mix of efficient diesel and powerful petrol models should mean there's something for everyone. First up, the diesels, and a note that we found a variety of reports for oil dilution. This was also reported to us by several owners on our Jaguar XJ buyer's guide for the V6 diesel. For this reason, we advise adding an oil change in between yearly services to all Evoque models. There are 2 diesels and 2 petrol engines across the production of the L538 generation. The earlier models were offered with 2 Ford engines. The 2.2 diesel engine was created in partnership with the PSA Group, and there was also a 2-litre Ford Turbo inline-4 petrol engine. These 2 engines are swapped for the Ingenium 2-litre diesel and 2-litre petrol engines later in the Evoque production. The 2.2-litre SD4 4-cylinder diesel engine is Euro 5 emissions compliant and creates either 148 or 187 brake horsepower, with an average of 44.1 miles per gallon. Faulty injectors have been reported, with the common cause being a failed seal, resulting in a poor idle. A fuel filter change should be budgeted for if there is no record of this being changed, as the filter may only be changed by some service centres if they've deemed it necessary, rather than as part of regular maintenance. Issues have been reported with the fuel pump, and although the part is not as expensive as in some other vehicles, its placement in the Evoque can make the job to replace it more expensive. Some owners have been fortunate upon inspection and found that the fuel pump has merely become loose and only needed minor repair to resolve the issue. Any indication of weak oil pressure should be investigated before the car is driven any further. There are reports of engine failure shortly after the engine management light, indicating poor performance of the oil pump. Turbo actuator failure can cause a variety of issues, but will likely cause poor performance or limp home mode. This problem may begin as an intermediate fault and then become permanent, at which time further damage to the engine becomes likely. Now we'll move on to the later 2-litre 4-cylinder diesel Ingenium, with the engine producing 148 brake horsepower or 178 brake horsepower with an average of 55.4 miles per gallon and Euro 6 emissions compliance. Although it may appear that this motor is the same as fitted to the Jaguar XE in the 2-litre diesel, Land Rover had to change about 20% of the engine to make it work in the Evoque and comply with the requirements for wading depth and approach and departure angles for off-road use. There are a variety of issues reported on the 2-litre diesel motor, however we must stress that the Evoque was a top seller for Land Rover and both diesel engines were the most popular in many markets. Common faults vary between 1 to 5% of production vehicles, and so although you should take note of all the points in our guide, it is best to be aware but not afraid when looking to purchase one of these vehicles. If you're not mechanically minded, then a third-party warranty from a reputable company is advised. The Evoque has had reports of timing chain failures leading to catastrophic engine failure. Cylinder damage due to injector failure can occur. If you think fuel consumption appears to be worse than expected, it'll be worth checking with a specialist to get the injectors looked at and the condition of the cylinders. As ever, the highest number of issues occurred to poorly maintained vehicles. Specialists report that of all the issues they see, a poor service record and neglect is by far the greatest reason for costly repairs. Buying one with a perfect service history may not be an absolute way of averting all the issues, but it certainly gives you the best chance of avoiding them. Next up is the early 2-litre turbocharged petrol engine sourced from Ford, creating 237 brake horsepower with an average of 36.2 miles per gallon. It is Euro 5 emissions compliant. These are generally considered reliable as long as they are serviced regularly, with the main areas of concern being the bypass valve and poor performance of the high pressure fuel pump. This was replaced with the 2-litre Ingenium petrol engine, creating 290 brake horsepower and an average of 37.2 miles per gallon. All units are Euro 6 emissions compliant. These are fairly rare on the first generation Evoque, as it was introduced later on in the Evoque lifespan and many buyers opted for the diesel. The two most common faults that we could find relating to the engine were cooling problems and issues relating to the engine timing. As these make up a small proportion of the overall Evoque first generation sales, it appears that they have fewer complaints. However, if you know anything that we've missed, please let us know in the comments below. Onto our picks, and we've split our options between the lower and higher budget. Lower budget buyers will likely find the 2.2 litre diesel model of the earlier Evoque the cheapest to run, and with good service history they can be purchased with a reasonable level of confidence. For higher budget buyers, either of the turbo petrol options mated to an automatic gearbox in HSE dynamic specification would be our choice. Thanks for watching, and if you've enjoyed the video, then we really would appreciate if you added a like to help it get found by others. But until next time, all the best on your car search.